Ave toronga na ngonongo. Ave toronga na ngonongo mi wakambula ve kemi ke sara. Wakavinvinaka na nomni adamai. Wakaleoleo na sinvinaka ni kua. E na nonda maro takatiko na vula. Ni kena maro takitiko na vula ni kena mararoi na nonda vura-vura. Kani marau. Ni tiko batiki kenda na sinvinaka ni kua. E dona nonda marama vulangi. Vulangi tokai, vulangi sureti, and ngole sarati kumai na nonda vanua mai viti. Aloha and bula vinaka, so I'm just speaking in Fijian in the earlier part of my opportunity for me to introduce our guest speaker today. So Alisi Rabukawaqa-Nacewa is originally from the beautiful province of Mbua. So to those of you who know Fiji, it's in the northern part. It's in the northern part of Fiji. I'm from the south, she's from the north. I think the north is the best part of Fiji. So Alisi went to the same school as I did. So we have some things in common, which I'm really proud of. I've been following her life in Fiji and really proud to see her work in the field of marine science, which is something that is very new, especially for our women in Fiji. In Fiji, a lot of men work in this kind of fields, but to see someone like Alisi take on the field of marine science and working with the ocean is something that I really, really admire. So apart from her going to the same school that I did and being from Mbua, she is also a huge advocate and a great role model for a lot of our young people back home. She's also part of the Mbua Urban Youth Network, which is a youth network of young Mbuan youths from where she's from, and mobilizing them in the urban areas to help her people back in the island. So I had the opportunity of interviewing her on my program last year, and I learned so much about her, and she has so much to offer, and we're just so happy and blessed, I think, Hilo, that we're able to have Alisi Rabukawaqa-Nacewa with us. And apart from all her academic achievement, she's also a beauty pageant. Yeah, she was a Miss Hibiscus of Fiji, so she won the topmost pageant that we have in Fiji. Not only that, she ended up winning the Miss South Pacific pageant, the whole of the Pacific, everyone. Yeah, right? So she's very humble, and I'm sure she'll be like, Tracy, don't say that. But I think it's times like this that we need to celebrate, you know, our own people. And just for her being here with us to share her academic side of things, but I also want to share that her other community side that she does so, so well. So on that note, I would like all of us, please, to put our hands together to welcome Alisi Rabukawaqa-Nacewa. Over to you, madam.
Thank you so much, Dr. T. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Anya, and everyone behind the scenes who worked together to get me here. It is such a huge, huge honor to be your keynote today and offer some words, some stories to honor and celebrate Lā Honua Earth Day. And yeah, and I acknowledge all Pacific peoples. And yes, Dr. T, Drew and I spoke a bit yesterday, and I was like, oh, I know Dr. T is going to go beyond the little bio that I sent, and she's going to give a bigger introduction than what I was hoping for. So just to give an outline of my keynote today, or my talanoa today, I really wanted to make it a story that connects me to my heritage and also to the work that I do. And I want to share that in 3 parts. And it's going to be 3 short stories that I'll share with you. And the first story will be the story of the girl, of me as a child. And then the second story will be the story of my youth. And the third story will be the story of the woman. And so through these stories, I hope that I can share with you the influences and of my ancestry and our knowledge, and I can share with you how that has guided me, as well as where I anticipate going, or the manifestations that I hope for, not only for us in Fiji, but for us across the Pacific, when we think about our earth, our whenua, our honua, our vanua, and how we celebrate and honor her. And so in doing that, I first wanted to share about this little sort of thing that we always talk about, the words, the use of these two phrases in our culture, in our language, mai liu and mai muri. And so mai liu, it actually means in front of you, but for us, it translates to your past. And mai muri, it literally means behind you, but it translates to your future when you use it in language. And so for us, how I've understood the use of these words or how we can embody is because we can see our past. So when we say mai liu, because we are looking at our past, we can see it. But when we say mai muri, which is behind us, it's our future that we are not aware of. And so to tie that in, I want to tell these stories and talk about how looking at my past, I use that to be my compass and navigation in moving towards the future, and tie it in with the celebration of Earth Day. So my first story is the story of the girl. And this is a story that I have shared a couple of times. And it's a story of when once I was around 4 or 5, I went to visit my grandmother on Seroa Island, part of the sort of close to the south geographically to where Dr. Taris's island is. And at low tide, you can walk across to the island. And so my parents bought me my little gumboots and my little bucket. And so as we would walk across, we would glean and get seashells and everything. And then when we'd reach the island, I'd give them to my grandmother and she'd prepare them. And so one particular time when I went to visit my grandmother, there was such an abundance of seashells and everything across the mud flats, we call it sasalu. And I got so excited. I just started picking everything I could see, picking. And my bucket was just like, it was a small bucket, but it was like, there was a mountain of, seafood that I gleaned that I took across. And when my grandmother saw it, she was like, what's all this? And I was like, no, I bought this for us to cook. And she was like, this is too much. And I was like, no, it's okay. We can eat off. She was like, when you go and clean, you have to remember that out here on the islands, we don't have a fridge to keep things in. But aside from that, we only take what's enough. You take what's enough for you today and you leave the rest for others who will come after you so that they can have some too. And so that was my first introduction, not only to sustainable use of our oceans, but it was my introduction to this knowledge that we have on how we utilize our resources so that we manage it not only for us, but for future generations, to remember those who are coming behind us, the ones who are not yet here. And it stuck with me so much, that such a huge impact, that island life, living off the ocean and the messages and lessons she learned me, that it took me off the career path. Traditionally in our family, everyone went through the medical path. My dad was a doctor, my mom's a midwife. My sister's gone down that path and everything. And I took off towards marine science because I really wanted to make a career out of this. And I had big dreams about diving out in the ocean every day, but that didn't really happen that way. That's a different story altogether. But that is the first story of that generational knowledge and studying. And then when I finally reached the University of the South Pacific to study marine science, and they started to introduce these concepts, I realized these are the very same things my grandmother taught me growing up. And it excited me even more, that this generational knowledge, it's already here. We already know these things. It's been packaged a different way. The language was brought in a different way, but we already knew these things. And so that was validation of sorts for me. It was a way for me to realize, yes, we already know these things. And as I learned and as I studied, as my knowledge broadened, I could see that we have it here. There's this knowledge coming now. How do I marry the two? How do we bring these two together? Because there has been, for the longest time, where Western knowledge and concepts have always been brought in without really recognizing the rich, huge knowledge and wisdom and culture that's already present with us in the Pacific. And that brings me to my second story, is the story of youth. How, as I grew and as I studied, how it influenced me to the point that after the pageant, the South Pacific pageant, as Dr. T had mentioned, I had the opportunity to sail on the Te Mana Te Moana journey on one of the 7 vakas, the vaka from Fiji, the Utonialo. And so that was me in my youthfulness, in wanting to learn, that eagerness, almost sort of like a brashness, and just, like I want to go out there and do these things and experience the things in the same way that my ancestors did. The sailors, the navigators, the ones who knew the stars and the ones who navigated these vast oceans long before anyone else did, to come to these islands that we now call home. And in part of that journey as I went, one of the things I learned was how our elders here in Fiji and other places refer to our islands, our trees, our plants. When they talk about them, they say, so they refer to them as our elders. They came before us. And so we do not see trees and plants and animals and fish as something separate from us, as something to be consumed only. We see them as our elders, as part of us. And so we have our totems that we identify with, these sacred totems and these sacred plants and trees. And so, when we talk about it, just in abstract, it's like, oh, we have a sacred plant, a sacred tree, a sacred this and that. But when you connect it with how we live with our environment, you realize it's also how we have managed these resources. Because when it is sacred, you look after it and you ensure that they are always around. Because imagine if your totem is a turtle and they become harvested to the point that they're not around anymore. And generations to come, they will say, oh, that's our sacred totem, but you've never seen one. And so it instills in us this need, this urgency to ensure that they're always around, to be protected, and putting these taboos on them, that they should always be managed well. And so when we think of management of resources on land and in the ocean, these were the processes that we used for management in our traditional culture. This is the knowledge that was already with us. Not to look at it as an abstract that we should protect these things for economic viability, for financial gain, but also look at the relationship with everything, because we understand the importance of
We might be having a little audio issue. We'll resolve it. Hey everyone, thanks for your patience. We're connecting with Fiji, so we're having a few little technological issues, but I think Alisi is going to use her phone to connect again, maybe.
Yeah, looks like she's going to use her phone again.
Yeah, and so in the meantime, we invite you folks to, consider what Alisi is sharing with us, her stories, and feel free to post questions in the chat. And at the very end of our session, we'll have a chance to ask Alisi those questions that you folks pose.
Yeah, and the Utunialo, which is one of the vakas that she was part of, is connected to Hokulea and Hikianalia for Hawaii. So it's been a wonderful journey that Alisi took part in. I think, if I recall, when I interviewed her last year, she was challenged by another of her colleagues if she can be able to join them on this sail, which was part of her, her dream, is what she's talking about, but it came sooner than she expected. So when it was offered to her, she couldn't back away. She took it on, and it was so beautiful to see. I think it was her and a few other women, you know, on the boat, on the Utunialo. And while she's trying to get back on her keynote, I remembered in the last couple of months, I think it was 2 months ago, they had a ride on one of the vakas, similar to the Hokulea Hikianalia, which is the Utunialo, and they were all women on the boat. The captain was a woman, and so as the sailors, yeah? And it was just so amazing. And to me, and I also want to acknowledge Tangi, another Fijian sister of mine who's also listening here. Hi, Tangi, Hula. You know, to see women in these spaces is just so welcoming. You know, it's just so awesome to see that women can also do amazing things. And it's women like Alisi, women like Eva, the Salome Tambuatale, if I remember some of the women that are taking the lead, you know, into sailing. That is really, really awesome. And that's why I was so excited, you know, to have Alisi join us today to be able to share her story, right? You're not reading it from a book, you're hearing it from a person. And now let's hope that her technology will work.
I'm not sure it'll work well. I think it's going to be muffled. Let me try again. I'm so sorry this is happening.
I feel like we can hear you, Alisi, right now.
We can hear you.
It's a little bit different, but I think it works.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. I will try and speak slowly and really just and keep it slow. And so that was the story for me in my youth, and trying to experience for myself these things, and then learning about, you know, how elders look at our children, and not just that, our ancestors, but how even our elders, for us, they say, the stones of the land, our foundation, because they are the ones that we learn from. And then that brings me to now, you know, the story of the woman. I have reached this place where I am learning these things and trying to apply it in my professional career, trying to find the ways in which our rich knowledge can also be applied in the same way as other concepts that we use. And an example is, you know, I remember when I started learning, there is this concept, you know, the participatory approach in development with communities. And as I was reading on this approach, I learned that it was a German approach that is how they work in their communities. And then it developed into this widely adopted concept globally. And so if that can be done in other communities, why can't it be done for our knowledge and our approaches in development, in economics, in finance, in biodiversity management? And so thinking through these things is now where I'm at. And the story is still going. You know, I like to think I'm still very young, and I have a lot more to contribute. And when you think about Earth Day and the work that we do as conservationists, as whichever other place we come at, and even as people of these lands and how to protect it, and as we celebrate, you know, Earth Day today, thinking through how we already have this knowledge systems and these answers, and we have practiced them for centuries, and how we can take them forward into the future, not only as these oral, anecdotal concepts that we share here and there, but as actual tangible things that can be adopted, that we can spread the seeds across the whole earth, across the world. Yeah, that was really my sharing. And I wanted to leave a lot of time for sharing. I wanted to present something in a way that I hope would trigger memories from everyone and have you all also share your own memories of growing up and how you define essay, how you define that traditional knowledge, and how you use it as well. And so that's my sharing for you today. And yeah, and I hope that you've enjoyed it all. Sumaka.
Mahalo nui, Alisi. We really appreciate you sharing this keynote, your mana'o, your perspectives with us on these stories. And we wanted to, as you said, we wanted to give some time for questions. So if you folks, so we really encourage you folks to post some questions in chat, and Anya will graciously read them, and maybe Alisi can respond. And Tarisi, if you have any comments, feel free to. Thank you very much. Let's have some of your guys' questions.
Okay, I think Drew, there's a comment here by Jensen about her interaction. Did she have any interaction with Hokulea? At least when you were with Utaniang. Thank you, Jensen.
And another question, or it would be great to hear, oops, sorry, I just lost it. It would be great to hear some examples of how totems are a method of indigenous land management in Fiji.
I try to speak again. I think it might be a bit too hard to type it out, but I understand that in the highlands that they have totem plants, and so these are sacred to them in the mountainous areas. And so when they're talking about reforestation and management, they use this approach to get that buy-in, so to speak, from communities, to get them to engage. And so when they go out and they collect these native seeds for, what do you call it? Me, a marine person, trying to talk about seeds, haha. But you know, when they try and spot them so they can grow them, so that they can plant more native seeds, these are some of the ways in which they engage the community to encourage them. You know, we need to plant more native plants. These are your plants. And you need to invest in planting them now for the future. So that's sort of the messaging that then gets them in. And when they go at it, it's quite a difficult process. You know, native seeds go through a lot of processes in order to germinate. And so getting them to participate in that process to propagate them is one of the ways in which they can do a native reforestation. Thank you, Mio. I see a question. So it began when I was still in uni. We would get involved with events that would happen. And I think the best answer for that is to have a bit of tenacity, because it takes a while. It's like over 6 years of going in. Sometimes you do some work, a year or two, there's nothing going on, and then eventually you find your flow. So for us, it was around maybe 2014, 15 that things really started to progress. and we really started to try and identify how we can make this movement grow and continue. And that was when those who were part of 350, the Pacific Climate Warriors, started to think about having these coordinators in place, about having a council of elders of those who had been part of the movement in a relatively longer period to help guide new people who've been coming in. And so, yeah, my advice is when you get into the space, when you start on the movement, it's not easy because sometimes it's like hot and then cold and then hot and then cold. And you're like, continue with this. But if you're really grounded yourself in the reasons why you engage, then the hot and cold of the outside won't affect your reasoning within yourself to continue in this space despite the external circumstances. And I think the more direct advice would be there's a 350 Pacific platforms across all socials. And I know the guys who are working on the team who manage those accounts are super helpful. You can message directly there and you will get a response, and they can direct you to the coordinators in your countries or to the people that can get you involved in the work as well.
Just had another question come in. Can you please speak more on how you view trees and other living things as elders? Do you folks consider certain animals as guardians for your people?
Yes, and before I answer that, one of the things that I always have to remember to state is that our culture of Fiji is not homogeneous. Like, it's different in different parts of Fiji. My totem plant and animal and guardians are different from Dr. T's, are different from anyone else's. It's really dependent on us. And so, you know, for us, yes, we do consider them guardians. We consider them messengers. In the past, there are stories passed down by elders where if they would see a certain bird, and they knew that we had visitors coming. And the bird is, you know, relative to where they're from, that brings that message. And certain animals would be a message of a birth, a death, a visitor that's coming. And so that is how they would tell themselves that they would see a little baby finch come. And they would say, oh, there's 2 finches outside on the tree. We might be having guests today. We should get ready for them. And sure enough, at some point in the day, they would have guests who come in to see them, like very important guests. And so that was how it used to work, you know, just to give an example of it, of what I've heard and seen growing up. Okay? Yeah. My totem plant, thank you for sharing that with me. My totem plant is the coconut. My fish is also the sanga, but it's sangaloa. It's the black trevally. Yeah. And what animal? Oh, it's just some blank. The parrot. Yes. So that's my animal. And so it's those relationships, I suppose, that really keep us connected with our environment. with our oceans, and it's what, for me, motivates me to continue in this work and ensuring that we respect and honor our earth and all that it provides for us. I suppose so. If we share the same token, they're considered family, and for us, it's also a way to find out who your relatives might possibly be, because we share the same tokens, and not only tokens, we also have like within our genealogy, we have our clans and our tribes and our sub-clans, and they are all named as well. And so in that same way, when you hear a totem and then you ask, oh, what's the name of it, to try and make a connection? And so the immediate thing is, this might be my family, and more often than not, you find out later that they're actually your blood. Well, it's a way for us to also connect with people. So,
Do you folks have any more questions you would like to ask Alisi? Did we get to the questions at the beginning? Alisi, did you see the questions about what was your favorite part about growing up in Fiji? And your hopes and dreams for the future too.
It's but it was probably not a favorite part growing up. I didn't realize it, but now that I'm older, I appreciated being surrounded by my family, my elders, and being surrounded by such a rich culture that I've born into and learning from. And as I grew up and started to travel, I realized as I met a lot of my friends and family in the diaspora, how much they yearned for that as well. And then I began to realize how fortunate I was to be able to experience that.
Another question come in. What do you identify as urgent issues in Fiji currently around ecological health, marine and land?
I think ecological health and marine, and it has to do with probably deforestation for agriculture. Populations grow, as communities get larger, you start to go into the primary forest, those native, those untouched forests, because you need land for farming, for agriculture. And this is going to tie into climate change because of how that's impacting on soil fertility and soil health, and changes in climatic weather. And so that becomes an issue. And then as agriculture grows, or through agricultural practices, then you think of the runoff into our rivers and streams and going to the ocean. A quote I heard yesterday, and I remember I heard before, from the late Colin Phillips. He is the friend that Dr. Tarisi mentioned that I spoke to about getting on the Upanyala. He said, our islands are tea bags, whatever you put in there gets absorbed by the ocean. And so when the care we have for earth for our land, it translates out into the sea. So that those runoffs in the sea goes into our oceans, and it exacerbates some of the issues that are already there around. There's overfishing. And then again, climate change is ocean warming and coral bleaching, and then you think of agricultural runoff that can lead to algal blooms, and these choke our reefs, and our reefs are the home for fish. And so when the reefs are gone, the habitat is gone, the fish will migrate somewhere else. You know, the same for us. We find places where we're welcome, where we can live, and that's the same for the fish. And so they move to other areas. And so for coastal communities, when there's a migration like that, it means they have to go out further, they have to stay out longer to fish. It means that some of them have to look at alternatives. And so, you know, it's connected. Often we look at terrestrial and marine as two sort of silo or pillars of subjects, but when you talk about industry, you realize the interconnectedness from the reef to the reef and right out into the open spaces. Right? Yeah. And again, I am so sorry my phone and my mic and my sound hasn't been the best in the last half of our session. I wish it was better so that, you know, we could engage better and the questions as well. Thank you all so much.
Okay, mahalo nui. Is there any final thoughts anyone would like to share before we bid our special guests farewell and happy Earth Day? Okay, we are good. Mahalo nui for being the person to initiate this period of Earth Day for us. Yeah, it's actually Earth Day for you, isn't it, Alicia? We're a little bit in a different day in Hawaii, but mahalo nui on behalf of the Hui Lā Honua, right? So the Earth Day Committee, we really express our gratitude to you, Alisi, and also to you, Dr. T, for being here, as well as everyone in our audience. If, you know, we do recognize that maybe the sound was a little bit muffled towards the end, so maybe we could work on getting a transcript to the folks who are here today. Would that be okay if we do that? Alisi, do you mind if we work together to figure that out? Because you shared such amazing stories and important information for us to reflect on. So mahalo. Okay, are we all good? Okay, mahalo nui. Happy Earth Day, everyone. We will see you soon. Take care. Aloha.
Naka, wale.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. Mahalo nui. Ahuiho, malama honua.
Ahoy ho.
Malama
Ahuiho.
honua.
Happy Earth Day.
Oh,
Okay, all right, it's just us.
yes. I'm so sorry, Alicia. I was in class, but I'm so sorry that your thing I guess she's gone.
Yeah.
You know what? Oops, so I should stop recording.
Oh, the
Okay.